Hey there, comic book friends. I'm Travis, and this is another edition of No Capes, where I talk about comic books that don't have to do with superheroes and or Ethan doesn't read them or review them along with me. But today, I have a special guest. Disembodied Voice is back with us to talk comics.
Hello.
So, we're just going to jump right into comics, and I hope that echo I'm hearing isn't too atrocious on camera. Can you hear that? Maybe
Yes,
it's just
a little bit.
Maybe it's just my plugged ears. Anyway, first we're going to talk about Baltimore, the Infernal Train, number 3 of 3, ending this little bit of story that we had. What'd you think of this book?
I'd like to hear what you thought about it first.
Okay. Of course, I'm really enjoying the book. I like the character Baltimore. This, I thought, brought a really interesting ending to what was going on here. The potential of this infernal train. It's basically an engine that's housing all of this evil. To summon up the the Blood King, is that what they called?
Yes, I think so.
Which is all interesting stuff that I don't know about because I started getting Baltimore about 3 or 4 miniseries ago. So there's a lot about Baltimore I actually don't know. I don't know how, exactly how, a ton about his larger back history. I know he's hunting down a particular vampire in particular. And that vampire is discussed in this book. But, and these people are like almost competitors with that other vampire as to who's going to gain favor with the Blood King, is what it sounded like. And Baltimore spoils that, basically. He decides this train's obviously no good, ends up destroying the train, and we get the final days and hours of our crazy Inquisitionist, which I can't remember his name right now. Starts with a D, right?
I don't remember.
Yeah. And a huge thing happens to him at the end of the comic.
Yeah, that was quite a surprise.
He dies and he becomes something more or worse, or I don't know. That was a surprise. The other thing that surprised me is I like I said, I don't know a lot about Baltimore, but I'm assuming he's a man. He's just a very determined man to wipe out this vampire who destroyed his family. But
I kind of thought he was like sort of vampiric in a way himself. He's not?
Is he? So
hey, people who know more about this, please weigh in and let us know.
Well, I don't know anybody who knows more about it. Nobody that I know that reads this has read more of it, or maybe they've gone back and read some of the trades. So, like maybe if Nate, if you've read it, or Kevin, if you guys have read the first trades or something of Baltimore, awesome, let me know. Because I thought he was just a guy. I thought he was a really, really determined guy. But he takes a bullet to the chest in this one and bleeds and just kind of taps his chest and kind of goes, yeah, okay. Seemingly at the end of it. I mean, I don't know how injured he really is.
Yeah, and I suppose if he were more supernatural in his body, it might have been something that sealed up. But then we don't know because we see the blood through his shirt. Right.
We don't know how bad he actually was injured.
I will weigh in and say that I really enjoyed the art in this because it really is reflective of what's going on. All those kind of browns and oranges and reds and, I'm not sure there's a bright blue or bright anything besides maybe red in the entire thing. It's all muted. And it suits the art. The art suits the storyline.
Ben Steinbeck doing the art, and of course, the masterful Dave Stewart.
Oh, such a good colorist.
On colors. So yeah, I love the book. I mean, I like the pretense of it, the style of it. You're right. I think the art is great. You're right. There's probably not a cool color in it. I mean, even the darker colors, like even on the cover here, the darker color is actually a hue of red.
I think did the Inquisition guy have like a blue jacket or something?
He did.
And but it's not a cool blue.
No. No, it's very good.
It's
Very either reds or heats or infernal. I love the whole train scene, the big fire train, the train crashing. What happens to the lady who's basically built this engine up to try and
I almost forgotten about that.
Her demise I thought was pretty cool. in it, because I love, you see what's happening, and then it goes somewhere else for a little bit, and then it comes back because they're all after the wreck and everything. It comes back to the wreck after the fact, and the river has risen, and she's got her issues going on and whatnot. I'm excited by the book. I really like it. I'm really looking forward to the next one. I don't know when that's going to be. It seems like we're getting much, much closer to his ultimate goal.
Yes, and I like Lord Baltimore as a character.
Yeah.
I really do. I think he's interesting.
Yeah. There's the underlying, in this miniseries, there was the underlying issue of, is he a monster? Who's the monster? Because you've got the Inquisition guy who comes across obviously as a deranged monster, despite him supposedly, fighting for God and whatnot. And him accusing Baltimore of being the monster. And Baltimore to me doesn't come across as a monster. He comes across as very determined to destroy the monsters. That's why I think it'd be weird if he's like part vampire or something. To me, that seems strange.
I just thought that he had some sort of supernatural taint to him besides just,
unless it's just massive exposure.
Yeah,
I just assumed it was him just probably being anointed and more driven by God than the Inquisition guy.
Oh, I never said that wasn't true. Doesn't he say to the guy when he's dying, the Inquisitor, doesn't he say something about, not looking too closely as the monster lest you become the monster? I don't remember. I know somebody says that.
We're gonna look
somewhere.
Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster, which is a Nietzsche quote.
And definitely too late for that guy.
And I'm also amused by the fact that Lord Baltimore is basically the person that takes him out, and he takes him out by he has a kind of a crucifix. You can see it here. That's sharp on one end. It's broken, and that's what he throws and actually takes the Inquisitor out with. So.
And I'm wondering if we'll be seeing the Inquisitor again too, since he's still running around passing judgment on people.
We will. I'm sure he's not just going to run off into the night and we're never going to see him again. It may be a long time before we see him again, but I can't imagine that.
And I would have loved to have known what language he was speaking in between saying the words unclean.
It wasn't like Latin.
I have no idea. That's why I said I would love to know.
All right, I'm going to look again.
You didn't have to look.
No, I don't remember. I don't remember specifically what he was. As he started growling and whatnot. I don't know who's saying that.
You don't know if it's him or the monks?
Yeah, or what? It's just like this chanting of unclean. And
I just feel like it's him because he's passing judgment on them.
Yeah, could be. Could be. And we're done talking about Baltimore because my phone's ringing and I'm going to answer the phone. And we're back, and we're going to talk about East to West, issue number 7, where we get kind of a background of the hand of, I don't know, he's the hand of God? I can't remember what he's called. The guy is basically the caretaker of Artemis. Artemis? No, it's not Artemis. What is it called? Is it Artemis? What's it called? The peace agreement thing. What's that word? Starts with an A.
Armistice.
Armistice, thank you. Who basically watches over this place. And we find out, obviously keeps pilgrims from coming and all sorts of stuff like that. But he obviously, in the current form, has issues because last issue we saw when Solomon was running from the place and he shot at a bunch of them, they got hit and he kind of spliced together with this demon thing. Something from the pit.
Yes.
Which I'm assuming the pit is hell for all practical purposes because we're talking about the 4 horsemen. The 3 of them are kids.
Yeah,
and of course
they're children now, but they weren't before, so it's like they've
been reborn. They've been reborn. They've been reborn. From what I can get from what I gather from the book is they all went into slumber, basically, died, whatever, and are being reborn. And Death cheated by not doing that.
Right.
So, that's why Def's an older guy.
Right.
Okay. And has been doing the stuff that he's been doing. But we had this, what I think is a really interesting story of them in the past laying waste to pilgrims in this place because they don't want any pilgrims there, obviously. They make some great comments, I think, about the fact that this was a lot easier back in the prehistoric or the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages. We'd go in and kill a town, and the stupid monkeys would freak out, salt the earth, and never come back again. It was really simple. And now the dumb pilgrims keep showing up. They disappear, and people just think it's the rapture or something,
Right,
and more
they think
people show up.
Were sucked up to heaven.
Right.
Instead of killed.
Right. And so one of them, I'm not sure which one of the horsemen, basically takes a child.
I think that's pestilence, don't you?
You think it's pestilence, the one in green? That'd be my guess.
Because of the way that they look.
Yeah. Takes a child and raises the child, and the child basically becomes this person who's kind of in charge of protecting the place. He erects this massive structure that, and it, chases off all the pilgrims now and whatnot. So that's all interesting. But this child has been spliced with something from the pit, and they've got some written rules, the word, and the word says that the hand is there to the end, and he's the hand. So despite him begging to want to be put out of his misery because he's spliced with this demon thing attached to his onto his arm, no, can't do it.
I mean, they could cut it off, but they won't.
Right.
And you think your parents might have been demanding? You're really lucky you didn't have pestilence for a mom.
Have you done all you could do? No. Probably more. Except at the end he does say, he's done enough.
He has, because,
Yeah.
his life has been utterly and completely taken up by this.
And then you got the side story of Death, who's looking for his child, and it started that journey by going to some mystic place of all these lakes and whatnot. I thought that was pretty cool, where he goes and they summon up a lake entity of sorts, and he's like, I want to talk to the lady. And then they start walking, the lake kind of opens up, and they start in this spiral staircase. And what the question is how far down does this go?
And he goes all the way to the bottom.
All the way to the bottom.
And that is a great line. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what Death does next. And this has been one of those comics that I've just been steadily plodding along and reading it. And parts of it I've really liked, like the sisters' rivalry and the love story between Death and the sister. And then for a while it was just kind of and for me it was just, I'm just going on and having my faith in it that's going to be interesting again. And I feel like it's interesting again. This was a really good story. And I have been interested in what Death's been doing this whole time. Mm-hmm. But some of the other stuff
Side
going
stories.
on with the will, I'm just not, the word, I mean.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's a different.
I was in Saga
a different book,
which I never get to review. Anyway, Boohoo. It's my favorite. But I think it's getting interesting again for me. Mm-hmm. And I know you've loved it the whole time. And this is definitely another case where the art really is reflective of the plot. I love their horses.
Yeah. The world building and concept of the look and style of it is cool. The kind of, it's got technology, but it's still got a little bit of the West in it, and despite all that stuff, and that's really fun. So what you're saying is the main story, which is, what I'm considering the main story is the thing with Death and the child and the end of the world thing, is the part that's really gripping. And we're getting these little side parts and whatnot, and some of those are more interesting than others are. Right,
like the one about the traitor, it was just kind of, I just read it.
Right.
But this one I really enjoyed the story.
Right.
And I felt terribly, terribly sorry for the hand.
Yeah.
Because he is a human person.
Yeah, he's a kid. He's
a human child that has been raised.
Right, there was part of the pilgrimage that was there, and they slaughtered all the pilgrims, and that was a baby that happened to be left behind. Normally they kill those too.
I know they talked about the good old days when they just threw them up on their pikes.
Right. Back in the good old days, yeah. But in this case, Pestilence decides to raise the
I
child.
definitely think of it as a woman.
Pestilence?
Yeah, she seems womanly.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, it's really interesting just listening to the kids talk anyway, because lots of times they talk in a very adult fashion, in a very wisdom, I've been around, I've seen lots of things, but they're kids. They're in the body of kids,
and
so you're kind of
like they're almost in spacesuits now. And in the previous incarnations, they were,
medieval looking.
And, well, obviously Death looks like a cowboy, so I'm thinking that the last incarnation was that era.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have to say about that book.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm looking forward to number 8.
It if you've been reading up to 7 in singles, I think, I'm going to keep getting it in singles. I can see where there'd be a benefit to reading in trade, because then you would, because Hickman writes in a longer storyline, and I think those little side ventures off into things wouldn't be as distracting or as uninteresting as how you're talking about it being, because it would be 5 or 6 pages of that, as opposed to most of the comic was that, and I have to wait another month for the main part of the story.
And I strongly agree with you, also because I was so behind for so long that I ended up reading them really far apart from one another, much farther than just a month.
Yeah. So I'm really digging the comic. I love the concept. I love the style, the look, the whole thing. There have been some issues that have been dry. I think since about issue 4, I think though at least, it has been nothing but enjoyable and really interesting. Hey, next up we're going to talk about Fatale, issue number 18. We're clear on issue 18.
Wow.
What you think?
I think this was definitely the kind of another one of those peaks in action where you have a build up, and then this was the, I don't know, I don't want to say the stuff hitting the fan because that's such an old phrase, but
Is the crescendo?
it's definitely the crescendo and the peak of something where our protagonist is remembering who she is again.
Josephine finally, it all
Yes.
sinks in.
And, it does not go well before that.
No, I mean, I love this book. And I didn't, to tell you the truth, in the early issues of it, but I've really grown quite fond of it and the way it is, and just the whole, this woman's life, Josephine's life, and that's really what the book is about Josephine's life and her dealing with her myriad issues and stuff. And this one just felt like a train wreck in a whole other way, because she doesn't know, up until like last issue, I don't think she has an inkling of what she does or how she's influencing people and stuff. And of course, by the time she's done with this issue, she understands completely how she influences everybody. But these guys like fighting over, trying to figure out what the hell they're going to do with the body, and then of Skip, who she had drowned himself in the toilet last issue. And then, them trying to decide what they're going to do with the body, and then the one guy, like, smashing it or something like that, so now they have to destroy the body of Skip.
Because they have made themselves accessories.
Right. And of course, they also let loose the big bombshell is we can't bring the cops in because we've been robbing banks this whole time.
Yeah, surprise. And there's, of course, women are not affected by Josephine, and so the one other woman in the group cannot understand why all of these men are completely insane, and whatever Josephine says, they do.
She gets it, but it doesn't make sense at the same time.
Well, yeah, she understands that whatever Josephine says, they do, but she does not understand why.
Yeah.
Or how come they're acting so crazy.
Right.
And Josephine has been Jane Doe for this whole arc until just now.
Right.
And she doesn't get it either, I think, until the toilet incident, and then she realizes.
Right.
This is, And
she's not 100%, but even then she's not 100% sure. It's not until they
film the video.
They film the video, and they're doing the song live, and they really get to hear it. And the guy who wrote the song was so inspired by Josephine that it touches them on a more personal level than it just being a pop song or whatever. And that brings back all these memories. It brings back Josephine's memories. And in the process of her memories coming back, and she's the dancing girl in the video, because this is a 90s Seattle band, and most videos during that era, a lot of them
Had background dancers.
had dancer girls in them. They just did. All the videos had a
They
girl.
decided they only need one.
Josephine.
Go figure, Josephine. And that's
And
what
so
they
when she's
needed.
and
Oh
then
my
she's
goodness.
dancing on top of the music being played and whatnot, and it just, her power, whatever it is, just radiates everywhere across the city. It affects our serial killer that we still don't have a complete story on him yet.
Yeah.
He normally snatches the women up and then takes them back someplace and tortures them. No, he beats this woman to death right there on the spot, right next to his cop car, wearing a police uniform. So I don't know how that all is going to turn out.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be crazy. It also awakens the guy who's been hunting for her this whole time, the occult leader who's been blinded and lit on fire and a whole bunch of other things.
Incapacitated until then.
Yeah. So the big can of worms have been opened up, and I don't think this is the crescendo even. I think the next issue is going to be the real.
Probably the
real. This is the everything's being opened. I think the next issue it's going to come slamming down in a number of ways. And it'll be really interesting to see what that is.
And I actually have come to feel sorry for Josephine. In the beginning, you kind of think she's some sort of brutal vixen because she is using her powers to get people to do what she wants. But then as you go along, you realize that I feel sorry for her.
She's as much a victim too. Yeah,
she can't control what she does.
Yeah.
And she tries so hard to not get involved with them, but the second she speaks to a man practically,
I decided
their life has changed forever.
Yeah. I decided during the 1970s one. That's when I decided, you know what, everything's out of her. I mean,
exactly.
She's trying to hide and then things just go bad. I mean, they can't not go bad for her, kind of a thing. So that appeals to me.
And I'm looking forward to finding out about her child too, because obviously she had a child at some point. Because there's a picture of her with one. And in her memory, she's remembering a child.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what that's.
So I don't know if that's a child she gave birth to or a child she adopted, or what happened there. But I'm interested in hearing that story.
Yeah. The art seemed a little different in this to me. Same artist, same colorist, same everything. But I don't know. It wasn't as sharp or something. I've had a couple books that have been that way that I don't know. I just, for some reason, art-wise, it seemed a little off, rushed or something. I don't know what. Cover is awesome.
The cover is gorgeous. I love that dress. I mean, the way that the red on the white is just, it's such a perfect showing of what happens. Because she's kind of white because she doesn't remember anything. And then when it all comes slamming down, there's a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, I just really like the dress. I just felt like it was...
There's more orgy than blood.
Yeah.
During the video. Anyway.
But the memory of all the blood that has been shed.
And that was an interesting effect we've not seen before.
I think it was the combination
her
of
passion,
music and...
Just her...
And her just letting go feeling good about letting go.
Except for the one guy who gets beat to death because he was looking at Josephine. And somebody else didn't like it. Anyway, great book. That book is just really cool. Okay, next we're going to talk about Hinterkind, number 2. Where we have our 2 young adventurers leaving home to find who knows what, basically, and having been attacked by a ogre, right? 4 or 5 armed ogre, 6 armed ogre. That they do manage to escape, and then they encounter another person that seems to be a wandering person. They gab for a while and make camp with that person. You got that part of the story going on, and then we also get this other thing. We find last issue towards the end, a person named the Queen gets mentioned. In this, we get to introduce the Queen. The Queen is literally the Queen of the Fae folk.
Yeah, they're back.
And her daughter. Her daughter seems extremely militant and just wants to go and crush the crap out of everything and make sacrifices, hunt down the few humans that are left over, sacrifice them all for whatever.
Right, because they're gathering all the humans up into one place.
Right. And the Queen has been reading tons of literature and stuff about humans because she wants to understand humans better. Because to know them is to, whatever. To
be able to pass accurate judgment on them.
Right, is what she wants to do. She comes across as basically passive to start out with and very, very, I guess, a romantic way of viewing the Queen of the Fae. She's wanting to know all this stuff and
she's got this long, lush hair and she just looks that way. And then her daughter looks a little bit scarred and she's dressed, in
hair chopped up short.
Right, and she has super short hair. She just has that trying to be the complete opposite kind of
And
look.
and towards the end of their conversation, basically the queen mom gets tired of her young upstart daughter and pulls this dagger at her side and reminds her of exactly who she is, and that she carries this dagger that's literally a slice of the moon, and so she's all for gathering. The daughter wants to gather them all for some uber sacrifice.
Right.
The queen's like, no, I'm fine with this gathering them all until we decide what we want to do for sure.
It's good to have them all in one place.
Right. But she also kind of implies, you got to watch out. These humans, they put us under before. They pushed us off to the invisible margins before. And it may not be prudent to just round them all up and try whacking them all. Sacrificing. That may not be the smart thing to do. So a queen seems to have some level of wisdom, or is portraying some level of wisdom, whereas the daughter's a hothead. So obviously there's going to be some conflict there between the two of them and how they behave. And our two young, intrepid people find out that the person that they've been hanging with, I thought was this kind of hunter guy, was giving them all this information.
Oh, he is a hunter guy.
Yeah, but he's a fae also. He's a fae also.
He's a bounty hunter.
Yeah, he's a bounty hunter. Him and a whole bunch of them are, gathering up humans. And they found out that Central Park is full of humans. So they're going to score big. They're going to score big because they get paid a good bounty for every single human they can snatch up. So they're going to snatch up the whole settlement. It's basically kind of where we're left at with it.
Yes.
So what do you think?
Well, I want to talk about this book in a couple of ways.
Okay.
One, I think it's interesting. It appears to me that some of the leftover humans are being transformed into Hinterkind, into these
because of the
elvish, not elvish, but fae
whatever
creatures.
Is that you're saying that because of the
not just
the
because
boy,
the boy has
who's got the rat tail,
but because some of the other people are talking about being on the outsides of society now, and some of the other weird-looking creatures. This is before we find out that they're fae. That
okay.
The fairy tale people, like I think last issue, or maybe the issue before that.
No, there's only been 2 issues.
Okay, last issue. Sorry, the first issue. Yeah, they're talking about having to separate themselves from society or something like that. And so I have a feeling that some humans are transforming into these creatures, as well as the creatures returning from wherever it is they went when the humans took over the world more. The other thing I want to say is this what you expected when you got this book?
No.
So did we kind of think it was going to be some sort of post-apocalyptic settlement story? What did we think it was going to be?
I'm not sure. I mean, I knew what the premise was going to be, that was fairydom and fantasy had retaken over the world, and man was on its last legs going into extinction. I knew that going into it. I didn't think, but this story feels very straightforward to me. It feels very conventional, and I guess I was expecting something to be a little less conventional. I mean, that was the premise, but I didn't expect it to be, my big issue is, with the exception of in this issue, with the exception of like the queen acting the way she does, which to me feels different than everybody else.
Yes.
All the other bad guys, I guess we're calling them that because I think we're supposed to relate with the girl, with the two humans, the two young adventurers. The bad guys feel like stereotypical bad guys. That's my problem with the book.
Yes.
Is the bad guys feel just like this could just as easily be set in any time or set in any place.
Aliens and humans,
or it doesn't even have to be that far. It could just be the Capulets versus the Montagues, for all intents purposes. That's the part that bums me about, is I was hoping that the Fae would be more alien, that they'd be more just freaking out there, instead of they seem like thugs. They seem like somebody out of Gotham or something. They don't seem. I wanted them to be more alien than what they are. To me, they come across the exact same as the humans. So what's the difference between them, other than one guy's purple and's got more arms or whatever? There's no. There's
I understand what you're saying.
There's nothing that defines them as.
We stand for this versus that or anything like that.
Right. I wanted
and
to be
that
different.
is too bad. And that I know you probably told me, but because I took so long to read the first issue, I had forgotten that.
Uh-huh.
So I wasn't sure what we were getting.
Oh.
And I thought that they were just like mutants or something.
Uh-huh.
These other weird creatures.
Sure.
And so that's why I thought that Tail Boy was going to turn into one of these people as well.
Right.
I still stand by the thought that they might be turning
Sure.
into them. And it's not that I don't want to see what happens next. I do. But I'm not sure how many issues, if they stay this kind of standard good versus evil.
Uh-huh.
If you take something like this, where you have this really, as you said, straightforward good versus evil thing,
Mm-hmm.
and that seems to be what the story is going to be about, and you compare it to, say, a saga where you've got the two warring nations.
But it's way more complex than that.
Exactly. And
Mhm.
and the people are different, and
Right.
even within the people that are fighting on one side, and the winged people,
Mhm.
and
The Moonies.
the Moonies, even within that, like with the prince and and the bounty hunters and everything, everybody has a very complex
Right.
inner dialogue and inner conviction and things that are driving them.
Right.
And so I will be sad if I don't. I mean, everything can be saga, but
As
I'm
I say, yeah, it's
surprised.
unfair, I think, to
I
some
know,
degree,
I can't
to...
think of it. Well, okay,
You
fine.
can't hold
then
everything. If you hold everything that litmus test, we've got a lot of marginal,
Yeah,
stinky books
yeah,
on our
we're-
hands. That's all I gotta
They
say.
all
So,
suck. Okay, we're done.
yeah.
No, but okay, then the
But yes,
Baltimore stuff.
yes, these people are not complex enough right now. There's nothing compelling about any of them. I think, like I said, the Queen is the closest person to me that has a level of complexity
And I
because
like the boy and the girl.
because her motivation.
It's okay for them to be
Well, sure.
simple.
I like the idea. I like the setting. I mean, the art feels a little sloppy, but that's okay because I like the imagery. I mean, I love the imagery of the first issue where you open it up and you got this, they're hunting,
Oh,
and,
on
you,
the
and, you-
rooftops.
and you back off and
I
they're
mean,
on top of skyscrapers hunting
awesome.
zebras. That's cool.
I know.
But-
so I'm interested in finding out what happens
Not
next.
sure how much more we're going to get that. Sure, I'll be getting it through at least the first arc. I mean, it's one of those books that right now I can get it or I can not get it. I mean,
Right.
if I wasn't,
So, when
I've
you
got
get
it
the first
pre-ordered.
arc-
I've got it pre-ordered, so obviously I'm getting 2 or 3 more issues, but it's not something I'm excited about. I'm enjoying it, but I just feel like it can have a lot more potential than it does.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
I'll try not to compare anything else to Saga from here on out.
You just want to talk about Saga? Do you want me to
Do
go back
not.
and get the issue?
No,
Just do that.
It's fine. It's all good.
The Occultist, issue 2 of 5. This is like a second miniseries. The first miniseries we did read, even though the disembodied voice will tell me she can't remember it, in Dark Horse Presents.
This is true.
This second issue goes completely off in someplace different with our main character, who is the main character possesses what's called the sword. The sword is, a book?
yes, the sword is
and
the
it's
book,
in him.
and it's inside him.
And it's inside him.
We can call it something book related. We have to call it the sword.
Right.
So we have a sword and we have a book, but the sword is a book and the book is inside of
This
it.
issue isn't that complicated. At any rate, so
Or something.
he has been trying to get a social life and sort of that kind of thing. And in the last issue, that didn't work out so well for him. His mentor is possessed by something. We're not sure exactly what's going on there, and he's cutting himself to keep himself with it. But he basically goes, "Hey, take the day off." Because normally he's either studying really hard or he's working with the police department solving their occult type crimes with this female detective lady.
Who
Fine.
we discovered recently is supposedly not interested in him because he took a little trip inside
Right,
her mind.
inside her mind, and of
which
course,
he should not have done.
right, because he went into her mind while she was sleeping, and the subconscious mind is all kinds of, tutti fruities, and he may have messed something up while he was in there.
Yeah, because now it seems like she thinks that she likes him, and maybe she always has.
Yeah, that's kind of a mess. But meanwhile he how does that work out? He gets visited. He gets visited by an astral form.
Yes.
No, no.
Well,
He gets the phone call or he gets text
he
message
gets
or
the phone call saying,
can't remember exactly what
take the day off, go out, do something fun, be a normal person for the day. Well,
So-
and then
yeah, so he travels upstate or whatever, right?
I thought he was
Because he's on the phone. He goes to this university.
Right, but first he gets the astral traveling, and then he's on the phone, texting this person that visited him. Her name is Luca, and she's not exactly hideous to look at, even in her astral form.
Well, yeah, and he goes to visit her, and it's a Catholic school, and of course, so she's a good Catholic girl in her Catholic school uniform.
Yeah. So, I'm getting these sideways glasses because I went to Catholic school, but I never had the uniform, so it's all good. Anyway, this whole thing has been set up by his mentor and whoever's working with them.
Right.
And it's almost like they're wanting to distract him for whatever reason.
Well, his mentor isn't really
huge distraction.
His mentor isn't really his mentor though. His mentor is trying to get at the book. He's trying to get at the sword himself. He wants the power for himself. He just hasn't figured out how to work his way around that, is the impression I get. Anyway, goes to this school, finds these 3 other witches, and they're all playing astral snuff out game, basically.
Yeah,
they're all playing a version of fly out in your astral form, get your tether cut so you're like gonna die, go down to as close as you can get to heaven or hell, flirt with having heaven or hell, grab your soul and start to drag you back, and then because the sword is so powerful, he can help grab you and pull you back to your body. So you get this sexual high of almost dying and then being birthed. Because you literally die, and as your soul's being pulled back, you actually go through...
You see all the other souls, the little embryos.
Right, little embryos of where your soul would go to for the next body or whatever. And so you get this... Obviously, they imply that it's some sort of a
rush.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the equivalent to the whole erotic asphyxiation, whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's how I took it.
Actually reminds me of that '90s movie Flatliners, where they die and they come back to life.
Kevin Bacon movie. I'm sorry.
It's that and Julia Roberts.
Netflix.
Anyway, yeah, where they die and they spend time in between.
So they could spend 2 hours watching that. They can spend 2 hours watching that movie instead of reading this book.
They could. But anyway,
But at the end of it, Luca ends up being potentially a love interest. So he's finding a relationship because he's kind of been looking for a relationship anyway at the end of this. But obviously it's all bad. I mean, they're using him for something and
yeah, there's definitely...
And it's obviously kind
it's all been arranged.
It's all kind of a high, and if it's an addictive kind of a thing, obviously...
Which it appears to be.
Being addicted to anything other than comic books and caffeine is probably bad, so... probably not a good thing. Art's okay in it. The cover is really cool, though. I really love his cloak, how it's the top half of the cover and whatnot. Anyway, yeah, don't know that I'd recommend this for anybody, really, but I mean, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get the rest of the issues.
Is this a miniseries?
Yeah, it's 5 issues.
Okay, yeah, I would read the rest of them.
And it's just for people who want to know. It's written and drawn by the guys who do Revival. It's written by Tim Seeley, Hack and Slash, and Revival, and Mike Norton, who does the art for Revival. He's the artist for it too. So that's the biggest reason I picked it up. I knew who the character kind of was, and knowing who the creators were, that's why I jumped on it. I thought, well, I'm liking Revival. Try something else for the 2 guys. It's not bad. It doesn't have all the complexities that. Revival has, for sure. And I think the character, the Occultist, is a...
is he a pre-established character?
He's a pre-established character in some sense.
That we're revisiting?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing how it all pans out.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I like short series because you know that there's a clear beginning, middle, and end.
You hope?
Yeah, you hope.
Well, I wouldn't say there is, but there's lots of miniseries that you go...
They are promising you a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Sure.
And I kind of like that. Okay, go ahead.
But everything's written in for trade anymore. So to some degree, there is an end to all of them. I mean, I end all of the storyline. I mean, not clear. How many books do we read that literally have a end? There's always something dangling for them to do something with if they can, right?
I suppose.
All right, next we're going to talk about 10 Grand, issue number 5. Ben Templesmith cover. Ben Templesmith did not do the interior art in this. This book is about a month and a half late because, as most of you guys know who are watching this, Ben Templesmith took a sabbatical without letting anybody know.
Yes.
And so they replaced him with C.P. Smith. And in this issue, our main character, Joe, is that his name, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
Has dived down 100% into purgatory to go and rescue his lady love, and has to deal with the denizens of purgatory, and his biggest threat is losing himself, losing what the hell he's supposed to be doing there.
Getting lost, because that's the easiest thing to do, because it's so much.
Because that's what purgatory is about.
Yeah, it's so much about.
Well, or whatever you want to call it. I mean,
the middle land. There's lots of different shoal. There's lots of different names for it.
right.
And it's all really about being still caught up in your human life, and so it looks like a familiar place. It feels like a familiar place, and it feels like and looks like a familiar place to each person their own way. You're shaping it with your own mind. But I guess there are some people there that he sent there, and they're not very happy to see him again.
Well, because he was an enforcer.
Yes.
That was his job before he became an enforcer. He was an enforcer for a mob before he was an enforcer for heaven.
Right.
And so, of course, there's plenty of those.
Yes, plenty of people that he took out that are not happy to see him again. I love the ferryman. He is awesome.
Yeah, the ferryman. He's pretty cool. He, the guy who takes you across the river, sticks and whatnot, and of course he charges a fee. They kind of explain why he charges the fee that he charges, because most people are boring. Because the river actually, Joe asks, well, what's the river really represent? The river represents your life and your issues with it and all that kind of stuff. And most people are so boring, blah, blah, blah. I charge him this money.
Yeah, as much money.
As much money as he can, but he's really got money and money's no use to him, but he's got to do something,
Right.
kind of a thing. And it's like, well, what's it going to cost me to go across? And he's like, dude, just get in. This is going to be a hoot, basically, because...
It's essentially this huge wave ride.
Right.
And when at the end, he's like, for a ride
here,
like that,
because
no
here,
thanks.
Star of the Glare here, here you got his boat, there he is. I love the fact he wears a little life jacket and stuff. It's probably the only real color in the thing is that bright light jacket. And, nice calm river and whatnot. And so, Joe's going to get in. He's basically saying, hey, look, this is going to be, awesome ride. And here they are. That's the river with Joe in the boat. That's the river. And that's what the ferryman lives for.
Yep.
He wants to be entertained and to be a challenge and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, sure.
And he says the reason why he hasn't crossed over is because all the places that the river goes are all the same, but the river is constantly changing.
Right.
So he's yet another riverman.
Yeah.
Because every riverman, the Missouri, the Mississippi, whatever, they all say that.
Yeah. Because heaven and hell, they're the same. I mean, they're different, but they're the same. They're both stagnant things, and the river's the thing in between. Art-wise, you know what?
I like it.
Yeah.
I love Temple Smith, and I'm missing
it's cool. There's these these uses of negative spaces, and the blacks and whites, and using. I'm assuming it's a Photoshop technique to have the souls that are trapped, these kind of negative planes and whatnot. That's really cool.
And they're all kind of blurry, and when they start coming into focus, that's when you're in trouble.
Yeah, and the other monsters that are here are twisted and scary and frightening looking, which I'm assuming they would, need to be and stuff. But no, really, I'm okay with it. Temple Smith definitely has a ambiance and a feel to all of his work, so that's not here. I don't miss it right now. I don't.
I liked what they said in the afterwards, the letter calling me, not, the explanation part, where he said that in a way, that Ben had too much to do and was suffering from too much to do, and so he had to step away, and they hope to work with him again on other things.
Sure.
But that this is a change in place.
Oh,
and it's kind of in a change of feel of the book, so it's a good time to have a different art.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because...
And it is good.
Because we're in another reality, it works to have somebody different. I don't know if he makes it back to... because he's left in a pretty precarious place.
Yeah.
He's losing himself, basically. Or what he was supposed to be doing is what ends up happening at the end of it. But I don't know, when he goes back to the normal plane of existence... Maybe I'll be curious to see how this guy does normal world stuff.
Yeah.
To see, because that was something that I liked about the Ben Templesmith stuff was, it felt very moody, very rainy. It felt like you were wet and smoky and sooty all the time, which is perfect for what this character is doing and does.
Going through.
So yeah, I'm enjoying the book.
I really like that.
I'm really liking it. Surprisingly, I mean, I was apprehensive because it is J. Michael Straczynski, who's notorious for not really finishing things, or sometimes I feel like he's writing for television.
Yeah, I didn't realize that this, because I've never really heard him. So I've heard the abbreviation JMS, you know, when it was attached to all that Superman business, and then I've seen his name. Yeah, and Wonder Woman. But I didn't make the connection that this is the infamous JMS. So yes, my fingers are crossed that this book stays together and is good, because it is really enjoyable to read.
Yeah, I don't see there being a long-term longevity to this thing.
No.
I don't think, because I think whatever he's going to end up doing, because of the scheming that's been done, I mean, I think there's going to be an end, and that'd be smart of him, I think, to have an end for it. But I'm enjoying the ride, not affected by the artist. The next cover is another Ben Templesmith cover, but it's the same guy doing the interior, so we'll see.
Yeah, I
Liking
like the covers.
Yeah. Okay, and lastly, this probably super long video, is Trillium issue number 4, where the cover shows them in this kind of romantic embrace, and I'll have some questions about that. What do you think?
I've enjoyed Trillium. It's been really interesting, this meeting of two worlds with these other people in between. The way that it ends, I'm not super in love with.
It says the end. At the end of this issue, it says the end, not to be continued or whatever. It says the end. And there's, I think it goes 7 issues. So I think there's like 3 more issues. There's either 3 or 4 more issues left.
I'm really interested in seeing what happens next, but this
What about this issue?
end is not cool, in my opinion.
What's not cool about it?
I don't like the fact that they destroy the temple.
The fact that the head scientist lady is, yeah, she's kind of
torturing the guy's brother.
She's an asshole.
And it doesn't matter to her that he can't understand her. And
Right.
when he finally does start to understand her.
She doesn't like the answer.
And so she just keeps
punching him in the face, basically, and then she basically nukes she attacks the place, and it looks like the whole place gets nuked. I mean, it looks like when she attacks it cracks something, or something breaks,
something
and
happens.
something really bad goes on.
They obviously need those flowers, so I'm not quite sure what they're.
Well, but she's gathered up like 20,000
flowers.
Well, it was enough. It was like what? They said it was like 10 times the amount that they needed for the amount of humans that were left, or whatever. So yeah, pretty short-sighted though, as a general rule, isn't it? That she's yeah.
I would think so. I really like and when I say budding relationship, I don't mean that kind of budding relationship. I like these two characters, and I can't remember either of their names right now. I feel so terrible. But I like the two of them. I like their relationship that's coming as they're starting to understand one another and try and figure out what's going on and what everything means. And then we have, the tribes people in his time, and then these blue-headed aliens.
Obviously, both sets are the keepers of the Trillium and the temples and
then the finding out that there are more temples. So I'm kind of
where there's a network.
Wondering if they're going to end up someplace else where there is a temple, and they're both going to be completely forever separated from their two worlds, or what's going to happen next for them.
What I think is interesting is when this first came out, it was billed as being a crossed time romance, science fiction romance is what it was billed as. And I don't see any romance other than this cover.
Oh, I think that there's potential for it.
Anytime a guy and a girl meet, or people who are attracted to the whatever, yes, I don't see.
I know, every time you have people together, there's always a potential.
Right.
But no, because of the way that they seem very connected at this point.
To me it doesn't. To me, it's she, the scientist, is fascinated with the idea of what he is and the romance of, oh my God, I found a lost civilization. That's how it comes across from her perspective. From his perspective, maybe there's something there because she's this woman that's come out of nowhere that,
Yeah,
or is there some extra special bond because they both licked Trillium leaves and somehow that's given them an extra whatever. That's my one criticism of the book. I don't think that's there though. What is shown on this
and
cover?
That to me doesn't look romantic.
What does it look?
It looks like he's helping her. Like it doesn't mean it doesn't look like a romantic thing. It looks like they're making their way away from something that was traumatic. It doesn't.
And see, to me, it looks like they're rolling around in the Trilliums.
Yeah. So I guess we just have a difference of opinion as to what that looks like. And I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
It said the end.
Yeah.
Must be the end.
These are comics. What did you just say a second ago?
Well, it did surprise me though to see it say the end.
And there wasn't even a question mark.
No, it was the end. It just flatly says the end. And you're like,
I know it does.
And I was like,
read it too.
And I was like, what? Are you sure you read it?
The disembodied hand.
Gonna throttle the. Right, yeah, see? Oh, spoiler, I'm wrecking the book for everybody. Boosh. And then right down there it says.
The end.
So.
Yeah, we'll see. It's almost like they're getting disintegrated, so maybe they're being
Yeah.
teleported.
Well, yeah. Or reconstituted someplace else. I do say she looks better when she has hair than when she's bald, though. Just saying.
I'm perfectly fine with her either way.
But yeah, it's interesting. I'm enjoying it. I'm intrigued. You know, to read the rest of it. But I do question that.
All right.
Anything else you want to say about it?
Nope.
That be it for this edition of No Capes. Be back later on with some more videos. Bye.
Bye.